Hello, everybody. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Here with me is Stuart, Balcombe. I don't think I need to introduce you to the HubSpot ecosystem, but anyway, Stuart, I'm super excited to have you here.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I'm excited for this chat, and we've been doing kind of somewhat similar stuff. I'm curious to hear your takes, see what you're seeing, share some of the stuff that I'm seeing, and see where we go.
Awesome. So, quick overview theme. What I want to really talk about is how the whole ecosystem is kind of trying to improve how we all communicate with customers, how we can go from one message to fit them all to really more individualized approach to talking to customers, doing marketing, sales, all the kind of revenue operations. And what you're doing with Account Scout is obviously going in that direction. So how we can better understand who is who, so how we can better communicate. As we kind of we're chatting before that, let's deep dive on all the enrichment stuff we're all thinking about. You as Account Scout. Before we jump and dive right in, give us a quick overview what you're currently working on, where do you focus, what you're thinking about.
Yeah, good question. So Account Scout sort of started as a pretty direct response to HubSpot taking away company insights, right? And so started with pretty basic enrichment data, right? Like industry, number of employees, revenue. And what's been really interesting is seeing that, which I think I sort of already knew as somebody in a growth or in a go-to-market role, like every business has things that are much more specific to the business and are much more sort of nuanced when it comes to how do you find your best segments, how do you identify your best customers, and like what are the sort of ultimately, like, how do you get to pain and find the things that are most relevant to people? And that's sort of where Account Scout has been more focused recently, is sort of what are the signals or the combinations of data, the different ways that you can identify without having to go do manual research who is, whether it's sort of as broad as like this is a good fit or this is not a fit at all and we don't want them in our HubSpot account, or we don't want them as a marketing contact in a HubSpot or marketing account in a HubSpot account, whether it's a little more nuanced and you're trying to get sort of build more context about that account so you can actually have a point of view on like, okay, what are we going to go say that makes us relevant or our product relevant to this company in this moment? Like, how do we be valuable rather than just showing up with, hey, we have a product, buy it, which is 2025. Nobody wants that.
From what I've seen, how we developed the whole idea, initially, yes, let's replicate what, basic insights were. And so it was kind of started with those 20 properties in reality. And now this is kind of the basic stuff, which, everyone is used to have within HubSpot. And now on top of that, you're basically building additional information for deep dive on every account, basically.
Yeah, exactly. I think that the replacement product, it was great and is great for a lot of companies who don't have that data or are spending a lot of time getting that data and updating it. But like, I think if you're really investing in segmentation and in prioritizing the right accounts to go put a human in the loop and invest in getting into those accounts, obviously it depends a little bit on your business model and sort of how you operate there, but that data just isn't anywhere near specific enough, and companies that show up the same in that firmographic type data could have drastically different realities when you are actually trying to decide, like, is this a company that I would want to talk to? I think a good sort of gut test is, if you go and look, generally, if you go to your best rep and ask, what would you expect to see on somebody's website that would indicate that they're a good fit? They're probably not going to say, oh, they're in this industry or they're in that industry, right? Or if they do,
and they have like 550 employees.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I think that there's sort of really getting into the details of the nuances is where much more of the focus has been.
Yeah. And I totally agree. These are the things that you can now do with all the AI. From what I'm talking to people is, yeah, and let's say in line with that. And I always, whenever we start talking about better data enrichment on top of basic one, is okay. Tell me what you're doing if you would have 5 hours basically available to research that account. What you would do? You would go to website. You would go to their press releases. What you're looking for? Are there specific keywords, themes, sections of press release, sections on website? I know from my previous business, when we were kind of classifying from a biopharma market, there were kind of two sides of markets: the vendors and the pharma companies, so developing drugs. And the first classification, which is not able to do only with filtering on Sales Navigator, is if they have a pipeline, so drug development pipeline sub-page, subsection on the website. So that's how you can classify on which side of the market they are. So, and this is it's not basic stuff. It's specific for that industry.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even there's lots of really good examples, and that's like a pretty simple, like yes, no, right, or like this bucket or that bucket, right? But like other examples of that would be like you're an agency or you're a brand, right? You sell services to many clients, or you are a client who has it, or you're a company that has a product and you're selling that direct to consumers, or you're a holding company of brands, or you're an investor versus a company that sells products or services. Like there's all sorts of these like relatively simple sort of definitions and classifications which just don't show up if you look at like sort of standard legacy sort of enrichment databases. And I think that it's interesting. I'm curious your take on some of the sort of language here. One of the things that I've been finding is that enrichment, I think, comes with a sort of pretty specific, like people think of specific types of data when you say enrichment. There's sort of another group of people who talk about signals, and like that comes with a whole different set of data. And I think that there's obviously that comes through in the products that we build and in the ways that you present information. But I think it's the thing that's interesting is every company has their own, like the sort of the nomenclature almost doesn't matter. It's just like, what does this company care about?
Yeah.
Right. And what is the specific mix that is right for them?
Yeah. And another buzzword is a buyer intent, which is, I guess, in line with intents and all the other stuff. Everyone is kind of having its own vocabulary for that, where in reality it can be everything the same. And then I even see when talk to people, they say whatever you want to call it, it can be this and this and this, and it's in a way all the same. Like it can be a lead, or it can be a prospect, or it can be a contact. In reality, it's just a matter of internal vocabulary that they use. But in general, I think everything is more or less the same. So how do you better understand whether the account is potentially relevant? Another thing which I see now is, and easily done with AI, is just, is it B2B or B2C brand? Which is, with, there is no filter on Sales Navigator or on any database, basically, if it's B2B or B2C. But if you take the about page, or just a home page of a website, and ask AI, is it B2B or B2C? Voila, you have the answer now, which was not previously.
Yeah, I mean, even just taking the company description, right, which is something that may be populated. It's interesting. It's the sort of that inference layer, right? Like the ability to go from, this is a piece of data which is discrete and it's factual and it's like, this is just what it is, right? Which you could even argue something like industry isn't that, right? But something like the address, right? It's like, no, like that's actually just the address of the headquarters. Like that's what it is. And then to your point, like if you want to B2B versus B2C, like you're going to have to go make an inference based on some other data. Like companies aren't generally saying, hey, we're a B2B, but like maybe they are, but like generally aren't saying that, right? And you have to go infer it. And there's lots of other examples of that are like a really good example that a lot of people care about is like technology lookup, right? Technology lookup might be very simple. It might be, hey, well, and again, not saying simple doesn't mean that every enrichment database has it, but like something like, do you use HubSpot for marketing? Is pretty simple to look up, right? Like you go to their website, you look at the script tags, and you say, do they have the HubSpot JavaScript pixel on site? And that's sort of a yes, no, like, is it there or is it not? But something that is also a technology lookup, but is much harder, is something like, what ERP do they use? right? Like they probably, like that's not on their website. They probably don't. I mean, they may say somewhere directly on their website, "Hey, we use this ERP," but chances are you're going to have to go find data and then make an inference from that data, right? Like that's. I'm curious how you see that breakdown in terms of like data that you can actually find directly that just sort of is what it is, and then data that is like, no, like actually we need some inference based on, multiple sources. We need to think about the reliability and the like verifying that this is actually correct, because that becomes it's sort of a squishy topic.
Yeah. I mean, I always have, let's say, build with and all the other tools that kind of help you, get that instantly. I always kind of feel that it's unreliable from what I've been using and seeing, because yes, maybe they have a HubSpot pixel and everything on the website, but does it really mean they thoroughly use it as you would expect they do? Or if you're interested in Service Hub or if in Sales Hub, there's no indication to outer world whether they use HubSpot as their primary CRM or Salesforce. There's no way you can gather that. And no matter what other tech stack you kind of try to see from the outside, you can know. I've been playing around with just let's say for which CRM they use, going through job posts of their company. When they're hiring a new sales rep, they would say you need to be proficient in HubSpot or you need to be proficient in Sales for whatever, and that's how you can understand. Okay, obviously they use that CRM, otherwise they wouldn't ask for that. But still, even there, often they say you need to be proficient in any of the major CRM platforms. So again, there's no way you can figure out what it is. So I see to some extent, yes, you can use that and then filter for that, but it's not enough to just rely on that. Sometimes you just need to ask.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's going to be interesting to see, and I think will be interesting as we see the development of more AI tools and sort of more broad adoption of agents for research, is like, what is the acceptable level of confidence on something? I know something that I've been spending more time on, in the last few weeks, is sort of more robust testing frameworks around, verification of like this is actually true, which, depending on how you're using research, can have pretty significant implications and pretty like your level of confidence needs to be different based on your application, right? Like, for example, if you're using, like we have customers who use Account Scout for fit scoring, and based on the fit score, they want to, remove a company from HubSpot or like mark all of the associated contacts as not marketing contacts. Like, if you're doing that based on incorrect data, you're potentially, eliminating a lot of revenue which you could have gone and closed, right? So I think that there's, there the bar is pretty high because it's sort of a discrete, like yes or no, like we're going to do something different. Whereas if you're using the data more as context to inform how you should go and engage, and you're going to have a human in the loop sort of by default, that's a very different scenario, right? Like, and you can handle that differently. You can show a confidence score, or you can, like, there's ways to sort of message, like, check this, right?
Yeah. Check, or if it's just for a matter of prioritization, again, it's the quality or the confidence level should and it could be lower, because you're just you might just prioritize later a company and not completely removing it from your portal.
Yeah, I think I'm curious, one of the big things that everybody, I think, sort of thinks about with AI stuff is like, okay, like where's the bridge between like theoretically this is possible, or like I see the demo and I'm like, this looks cool, and sort of real application and like integration into workflows for the humans at a company. I'm curious what you're seeing there. Like, how do you sort of message that sort of adoption gap?
Good question. Probably not as good as we should. I mean, I see more and more that as long as you bring data to HubSpot, it's much easier to communicate the value of all that extensive research, and then also value for further use within workflows, sequences, marketing, communication. And if you, as a service app provider, are bringing that information to HubSpot so that they don't need to necessarily learn the tool or a new system. I kind of feel that's happening now with Clay in a way. It's a really powerful tool, a platform, but there's a big first step one need to make to understand, to learn it, and then it's still not directly connected to HubSpot. No, it's not native there, so you need to kind of juggle between two systems and sync them and all that. So it's kind of a hurdle where if you have a system that brings directly to properties, which is really natively built with being in HubSpot, there it's a much easier kind of sell off of the whole system and then the value you can bring to users. How do you see that, Stuart?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's the question in there to me is like, what's the level of abstraction on top of AI or the agent? Like, Clay is powerful for a few reasons, right? It's very powerful because it is very flexible. It has a lot of sort of built-in tool, like it's a spreadsheet where you can make every column do something different, right? Like they have a lot of sort of built-in tools where you can do a lot of different things, and because of that is very powerful, but it's also very complex, and like there's a lot of like the barrier to entry is high. And then you have this sort of, I mean, that's just sort of at the simple, like how the product works. Then you have the AI pieces inside of Clay, which are not predefined, right? It's sort of system prompt and do whatever you would like inside of an AI action, which again, ClayGen is incredibly powerful. You can do a lot of stuff there, but again, the barrier is high before you ever get to the point of, okay, I have data which I can now integrate with HubSpot. And Clay has a pretty good HubSpot integration. It's expensive, but it's like it's does what you would expect a good HubSpot integration to do, right? And I think it's interesting. I think it's at least for Account Scout that we're sort of taking a pretty opposite approach there, which is like you can, with Account Scout, you'll give up some of the, customization and flexibility yourself. But the advantage is that you don't have to jump over the learning curve of getting to the point where it does something,
learn
right?
how to navigate all the 50 columns and all the various tools put together.
Exactly. So that's sort of I think everything's sort of a trade-off, and I think that's both on the sort of tool UI perspective. Like Account Scout doesn't have UI outside of HubSpot; it's like very native inside of HubSpot. But also from the AI side, it's like, at least today, is abstracted where like you actually can't prompt Account Scout. It's like built into the product that you define, like, this is my criteria, and Account Scout will give you back, this is the data.
We took a similar approach with agents we're building for users. Let's scope the goal of an agent, what kind of data we should pull from HubSpot, what the agent should do, what should be the output, how it will be structured, where it goes back to HubSpot, and that's it. Once you verify agent is doing what it's supposed to do at the quality, at the classification you would expect it to do, then it's plug and play, and it's there and it works for you. And everything is kind of happening under the hood, brought directly to HubSpot. So it's kind of easy to use from that perspective, and from what I see, it's kind of appreciated value point.
And I think it obviously depends on your buyer, right? Like it depends who is going to be using the tool, and I think it's certainly interesting, and I think we're going to say, I'm curious your take on HubSpot's obviously big release this week with MCP. I'm curious your take on like who the user is there, and like what does the path look like to everybody just firing up Claude or whatever LLM they would like to use, and just I mean it feels like you're SSHing into a server, like, which you basically are.
To just a structured one with ideally all the data you have around customer interaction. I mean, on a short term, I see that as HubSpot being positioned at now we're at the cutting edge of what AI offers now. Um, from what I've seen, a lot of that is just kind of storytelling that yes, we are implementing that as soon as it's possible. But on a short term, I don't see a typical RevOps expert or HubSpot admin or marketing leader using that MCP access to HubSpot. It's kind of for a niche set of really AI savvy technical people who are capable to code, who are capable. I mean, I'm a pharmacist by training, and I'm still not at the level to do vibe coding and build stuff on the fly. I'm not there yet. My co-founders are telling me you'll soon be able to, but I'm not yet. So I kind of take a look from non-technical point of view, and I don't feel called to use MCP anytime soon.
Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting to see what realistically what does an adoption path look like. Like if you are that person at a company that is technical enough, that is, and not that the setup is it's non-technical to set. Well, you have to copy paste into a JSON file, but it's about as technical as it gets. Which of course some people are like, what the heck is JSON? So that's not to say that it's super simple, but I just don't see somebody, even if they are in that mindset or they want to do it, being able to go at their company and be like, hey, give me MCP access to HubSpot today. Like I can't imagine that anybody's going to do that. Because I think that there's one of the challenges with there's this sort of oversight layer, or like we were sort of talking about, like the level of confidence in data, or the level of the sort of verification threshold that you set. Like once you can just access HubSpot and run it through an LLM, like you lose all of that like system that is confining and controlling. Like this is okay, right? Like I can now go write anything to anything, right?
Yeah.
So I think it'll be interesting to see what the path looks like there. I do think that there are a lot of really interesting use cases that are going to come out of it, which by enabling you to actually connect HubSpot to other data sources that you would just never have previously been able to connect to, right? And like the thing that LLMs are incredibly good at is reasoning about very large unstructured data sets. And much faster, much more effectively, much better pattern recognition than a human can. And I think that being able to do that now and say, hey, look at this pattern over here, which you found, look at that pattern over there, which you found, and figure out the connection, I think is something that it'll just take the time to ship and time to find insight from, like weeks of data science and engineering to, it's like 2 minutes and
a question and you get the answer. I mean, I see all that MCP access and agent AI, what Dharmesh is building, and all that. Yes, it will collide into a really powerful solution on top of what we know HubSpot is today. And then part of the users within every portal will definitely leverage that.
Yeah.
But I don't imagine necessarily salespeople would be interacting with that. Like now you have RevOps or HubSpot admin who is kind of responsible for the portal, and the same person or someone else might be responsible for the MCP access, and solution partners are here to connect for the ones where you don't have a technical person internally, but the leverage of that connectivity will be then used across the whole team within marketing, sales, and customer success.
Yeah, I think that ultimately it's going to end up with like the last mile of execution, or like the last mile of like the human actually having to have a relationship with the human on the other side is still going to be what everything comes down to. It's just going to be sort of a more efficient way to get to the point where that is the next step, right? Rather than having to go do a bunch of work before you get there, it's okay, like, well, this is the thing that the humans are focused on. So I think it's definitely going to be interesting. I think that there's also, I mean, it's sort of similar to the clay adoption curve and sort of complexity challenge, is that there's the bleeding edge, and then there's a big gap to like the reality of most businesses.
Yeah. I was just having a chat earlier this week with one of the users who said, no, I see in probably not so decent future a system where it just monitors my unstructured data in HubSpot and tells me, hey, there's someone because of that pattern who is you should reach out and talk to. Now you don't have that ability. I mean, you can have workflows and things to catch some patterns, but you need to already know those patterns, know how to score them in a way to catch them. But soon you'd have a few agents just looking at your data, what's happening, and then boom, this one is going to that conference, so go there. Someone is going somewhere else, and then from social media you bring all that together, and then it's just too much data to anticipate all the nuances and edge cases that will be happening. And in AI, I really see that as really good use of AI to just help you understand what's going on.
Yeah, I think that being able to structure the unstructured data that you have, and I think more so than just like structuring it so you can put it in a database, is like structuring it so you can actually determine a possible next action, right? Or like the most optimal next action based on what we know, right? And I think that that's the thing that is going to become powerful. And I think the thing that obviously HubSpot is well positioned in the sort of AI space is they have a pretty unique data set, or that companies have pretty unique first party data inside of the HubSpot portal. And I think that that's the sort of area, like Jordan Crawford obviously has been talking a ton about AI stuff and is doing some really cool work, but sort of his projection or prediction on sort of where like go-to-market is going, there's going to be sort of the CRM where you have your source of truth, you have the sort of public web or public semi-public data, your sort of source of information, you have a tool or a system where you sort of your system of action, where you actually go take those two data sources and go do stuff with it, like whether that's running events or sending messages or building campaigns, like actually deploying things into the world. And then like the human will sit with an LLM to help them reason about all this data that they couldn't reason about by themselves, right? And I think there's certainly a lot of strong signs that is starting to come, like it's starting to be possible, at least that sort of is a system. I think that it as with anything that's AI related, like what is the actual, like the realistic path to it being the reality for businesses that can't just decide we're an AI native company from today.
Yeah. I mean, it will be, I think, more and more present with all kinds of companies, and we'll get used to it. And now it's vibe coding. At some point, it will be vibe RevOps, and then vibe HubSpot admin role and so forth. You will be kind of just asking LLM to help you coordinate the agents who will then do the heavy lifting, and then you're just kind of connecting the dots.
Yeah, I mean the thing that's interesting is that like obviously AI is new, right? Or like relatively new. But the things that people are doing with AI, for the most part, are not very new. They just have never been able to do them automatically at scale, at the speed that they're doing. Like the idea that you have like engineering as marketing, for example, like we build a tool which is how we add value to people before they use our product. So we acquire them as leads. Like HubSpot built a website grader back in 2012, like forever ago, right? Like people have been doing that forever. You can just now automatically do that for every single account based on unique data, right? Like so I think that it's going to be interesting to see like what are the things that are truly new versus what are the things that are existing things that now are just possible faster and at scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're over time. I don't want to take too much time of you, but I feel we'll definitely need to reconnect on all those topics that are bumping up.
We didn't go super deep on any one thing.
Yeah.
I think there's just like a lot of things, right?
Yeah. We'll need to have deep dive sessions for specific topics. But I really found it interesting as always. Insightful chatting with you, Stuart.
Thanks for
Thank you for joining me. Looking forward to have you join me often.
Yeah, for sure.
Stuart, thanks so much. Others, take care.
Thanks, Simon.
See you soon.